Now, talking about the VAT collection methods as they occur, we have several of them. I'm not sure if I'm complete. I think I am, but the first one is a common model, at least used to be in Latin America, the PSP collection system. So there is VAT on digital services, but the foreign seller is not bothered with that because the tax authorities instruct banks and payment service provider to withhold the VAT from the amount that is transferred via the payment service provider. So that is the first step that countries take. Then the second one, and that's the most popular one, have a simplified VAT GST collection system, whereby you can register via mostly in English language a portal and file the returns directly with the tax authorities. Then also you can come into the net and register directly, but in the standard VAT collection system. Examples are South Africa and UAE, for example, where that happens. Sometimes you are required to go into the standard system with a fiscal representative. Examples are Albania, Serbia, for example, where you have such a system. Sometimes you register with a local agent, like Saudi Arabia. They have no formal requirement anymore for a fiscal representative, but it does make life easier. The alternative option is that you have a local agent who does your bookkeeping locally. And of course, important to keep in the eye the role of the online marketplace. I'll touch upon that, but sometimes they're intermediary, but more and more they are the full seller of the service. So there are a lot of variations, and you need to be prepared. I would like to walk by a few of these systems, starting with simplified collection and the and that is basically one of the first systems that came about. That is now part of the EU OSS system. For digital services, two of the schemes are relevant. Non-EU sellers are part of the non-union scheme, so they can register in a country of their choice and report the VAT on digital services in that country. So one return for all countries. EU sellers can do it in the union scheme one-stop shop, where they also report cross-border supplies of goods. So that is the two variations in the EU. How does that look like? Well, if we have a US company selling digital services out of Silicon Valley, they can register, for example, with the Netherlands tax office for the OSS non-union scheme. They can sell their products to consumers in every part of Europe. Then report the VAT via the OSS non-union scheme in the Netherlands, pay the tax to the Netherlands tax authority, and then they divide the VAT to the other countries. You can say this is a very simplified way because you have one VAT return where you can report the VAT for one of the largest trading blocks in the world. So that's definitely a simplification. Is it all that easy? No, it's not. When something goes wrong, when the tax authorities forget to pay around the money on time, or when the bank takes a bit of a bank charge out of the payment, so there is a little underpayment, you get to deal with 27 tax authorities potentially who will all send you a letter, often in their own language, telling you to make the payment. So if all goes well, it's very simple. If things go not that well, then you can run into issues because there's behind this one registration, there are still 27 tax authorities that show up. Australia and New Zealand, also good examples of simplified portals. So you register with them and make the supplies to the consumers in those countries. You can reverse charge B2B supplies, and the VAT on the B2C sales is settled via the tax authorities. And they have a very easy way of dealing it, very approachable tax authorities. So that is another example. So here life is quite easy. That is quite different in a country like Mexico, for example. Mexico has a registration. It is simplified because normally it's not that easy to be VAT registered as a non-resident. But in Mexico, for digital services, you get registered as a non-resident, but you have to use a fiscal rep. And that is not for nothing, because the registration really is done by the local agent visiting the tax authorities, waiting long because the tax authorities are obviously also working from home. So it's very tough process to go through, but the payment can be made directly to the tax authority. So that does not go via the agent. That's another variant where you register via fiscal rep, and then also the payment goes via the fiscal rep because it has to go one by one. So these are the collection mechanisms. In the next slide, I give an example of some, and not all jurisdictions are here, but here you see that the simplified collection system is pretty widely supported around the world. Then there are quite a few that require fiscal rep, and then there are a regular collection system. And there are some simplification often in place for non-residents, but largely you file just like local parties would do it.